Alright, so we've watched A Cinderella Story, which came out in 2004. We watched another Cinderella story, something about dancing. And then the third one is A Cinderella Story Once Upon a Song. And that one came out in 2011. So, one of the fun things about this movie is it does pay tribute to its two predecessors, which is kind of neat. For example, the best friend character's name is Angie, and she drives a car, and it is the same car that the main character from the first Cinderella story, Sam, drove in that movie. So it's interesting. Also, there's a line in here that references a song from the second movie, Tell Me Something I Don't Know. And there's a reference to DJ Funk in the final act. And so there's a couple just like little hidden nuggets, and like if I didn't marathon these movies, I probably would not have caught them all. But because I am watching them back to back, it makes it really fun. It's like, oh hey, there's a little Easter egg there, a little tribute to the other movies, and to recognize that this isn't just a movie all of its own, but it does follow in the footsteps of two other movies. Okay, so let's get to the opening scene. I was not impressed with, because basically the first scene of the first movie opens up with this narration, and we get a narrative from our main character Sam, and it introduces her relationship to her father. It introduces the stepmother, the stepsisters. We get an idea of Sam and in her head, and then the death of the father and things. And so yeah, it fits. It's like a Cinderella version of While You Were Sleeping, and it even has the song from While You Were Sleeping. But it fit that movie for what it was, and it was pretty good. But all the other movies that come after that opens up with this music video dream sequence. Like, everybody just wants to be in a music video. And literally, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one in this series, all three of those do that. And so when I'm watching this third one, I'm like, they just had to do that. And I know that it did that before, because I'd actually seen a clip of the opening scene before. It's one of the few clips I'd actually seen of the movie. So I was really surprised that after that clip, how drastically it veers off the path of its predecessors, and even the movie that comes after it. Because the plot goes like this. The stepmother is actually the dean of a private school for talented individuals. So for the arts, people who are into music, dancing, choreography, the business aspects of the entertainment industry, and so on and so forth. So on one hand, she's actually set up to be a more serious character than the other two stepmother figures. But on the other hand, the woman is nuts. And she is ridiculous in a completely different way. And it's kind of interesting, again, to have this progression and contrast of, okay, you can have this wicked stepmother, and she has some very similar moments that the other stepmothers had with their Cinderella characters. So Sam with Fiona, and Mary with Dominique. You know, they had these mother-daughter-ish sort of moments where basically just got kind of put back in their place and torn apart. But in this one, it's the characters are they're so different that you get a different feel in these moments. And the plot line is so different that even though you got these similar beats to it, it doesn't feel too repetitive. Plus, the window dressing on the scenes are so different that it does make it nice and refreshing. So, sorry, I digress. But the plot goes like this, where we're introduced to Mary. She starts her day after her dream sequence music video thing, and she has a stepbrother named Victor, who is a little terror and monster, and a stepsister named Bev, who is blonde and stuck up on herself. So at least we've stepped away from the whole fraternal twins are evil thing, so that's kind of nice. Also, we get a difference of characters by having the stepbrother, who is so much younger, and Bev, who is about the same age as our main character. And in this one, our main character's name is Katie, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the actress. I really don't recognize her from anything, and I feel kind of bad from that, so I don't know if she's like another stolen from Disney or stolen from Nickelodeon, or, you know, I don't know anything about this actress. I need to look up her filmography, because she does a pretty good job. I don't think she quite has the same acting chops as Gomez did, but maybe it's also because her character is so different and so more subtle. In a lot of ways, she really feels like a Cinderella character, not just somebody put in the scenario that's like Cinderella, but that just meek, wanting to help other people kind of character and personality. But she is very, very talented, of course, because our main character has to be the one with all this great talent. So we're introduced to our Prince Charming-like character. He's enrolling at the school after Katie's had this really bad day, and Katie works kind of as a personal assistant and housekeeper for her stepmother. And so her stepmother Gail is fawning over this father of Luke, and his name is Guy, and he's a producer of different musical talents, and Guy wants his son Luke to go into the business aspect of the entertainment business rather than to be a talent himself. Luke, on the other hand, is a talent, and one of the things I couldn't help but notice is the Joey Parker character from the last movie. He very much had a vibe like a popular actor from the 90s, Joey Anderson, I want to say his last name was. Now I can't. I feel bad. I meant to look it up and write down in my notes, and I forgot to. But Luke, on the other hand, has this Heath Ledger kind of thing going on. Blonde hair, slightly curly, boyish charms and everything. And it really works. He has that kind of swagger. The dubbing for the music is kind of like, you know when they're dubbing, which is kind of frustrating since dubbed music is a plot device in the movie, so all the more annoying. But you have scenes where somebody's just strumming a guitar, but all of a sudden you hear like drums and other instruments going on that's like an auto dubbing and syncing and stuff like that. It's like, why? Okay, this isn't a music video scene. This is supposed to just be someone chillaxing and practicing and showing off a nice personal moment. We don't need it to sound like a music video. That's actually distracting from the story and the characters. That's one thing that they did like early on. I think they toned it back a little bit later in the story, which makes this movie seem a little off balanced. But basically, we get a legitimate love triangle in this movie between Bev, Luke, and Katie. And of course, Katie is our Cinderella character. She's very put upon, and you kind of want her to get with the guy. But on the other hand, by the third act, I was rooting for Bev because I just felt so sorry for her, and I felt like she legitimately liked Luke. And I felt like she was stuck in a hard place in a rock just as much as Katie. On one hand, Bev isn't put upon with all the work and stuff, but on the other hand, Bev knows she's not very talented musically. She desperately wants to be, but she knows she's not. And while she's pretty, she knows that that's fleeting because her mom was not very talented. And her mom's having plastic surgeries and different things like that, trying to maintain the youth that she's already lost. And so Bev realizes beauty is fleeting. She already knows that. And so to realize that she has to use her stepsister's talent to be able to get anywhere, it's actually really devastating, and you get a lot of feels, and that's another thing about this movie. It has way more feels than the other movies. And if you've watched any of my reviews of book hauls and just different books I reviewed, one of the things I think is a pillar and what makes the Cinderella story great is the family relationships and dynamics. In some of my favorite ones, I think Marsha Brown was the one that I read her book of Cinderella that I really liked because it brought out the relationship between the stepsisters and Cinderella. Cinderella wanted a proper relationship with her sisters, and they denied her that because they looked down on her so much. And in this movie, Bev and Katie don't really seem to view one another as sisters, really. And it's not necessarily that Katie wants that relationship, but when she does see Katie hurting, well, first Katie gets blackmailed into helping Bev, but then she really does get into wanting to help her, especially in the last act, the very end of it. It's like she doesn't want to see Bev humiliated. She's already seen Bev's vulnerability and seen things from Bev's perspective a little bit. And so she's trying to help Bev. And so I really like that. It brings out more of the human nature and the tenderness and relationships between the different characters, instead of them just being stock archetypes following the formula. Yeah, it does follow some cheesy romantic comedy high school formula to a point, but for the most part, this movie doesn't let those formulas hold it back. The second movie was way too formulaic. It distilled the characters down and the story down a bit too much. And this one, it broke free of the formula and did something more different with it. It was just so cool. For example, the ball. Again, it follows the formula of the ball happening kind of early on in this movie by being like actually the start of the second act in this one. So it's a little earlier than even the other movies, I think. But the ball scene is a themed, Bollywood themed party at the art school and everything. And so you get this really cool Bollywood scene. Everybody's wearing masks. The women especially have the veils on and stuff. And so it adds to that whole who's who, trying to figure out who people are and everything. And it's actually works really cool. And one of the things I found funny, like early on when we are introduced to this character, he's kind of, at first I thought, oh, he's going to be like Funk was in the second movie, and so I felt like maybe it was going to be a little repetitive in certain things, having your token black male sidekick in the movie. But this character introduces himself, and he's Mickey O'Malley, and then he says, a rarity in the Irish community. And that shows a little bit of the humor in this movie. It pokes fun at certain ethnic expectations and standards, or it just kind of breaks down those barriers. And I think in some way, for me, as somebody watching a lot of Cinderella stuff and reading Cinderella stuff, I feel like it could have been like an homage to the fact that Cinderella is told in so many cultures. And there's a lot of ways to tell it. And so the Mickey character, in some ways, he is still just that token sidekick character, but he still brings something to the table. He still has his own style, his own thing just kind of going on. Like, you know, he has stuff that's not actually on the screen just because when he first meets Luke, you know, he has the scoop of what's going on in the school. And so you just kind of feel like this is a character who does not begin and end with this movie. He's doing his thing. He exists and lives in this world. So the character Katie herself is basically stuck trying to help her sister Bev by lip syncing for her, and her stepmother blackmails her with the career of, or the career opportunities of Katie's best friend Angie, because Angie kind of crossed the stepmom. So, Angie, while she's best friend character, she plays a pretty strong part in the first and half of the second act. She really doesn't do much in the third act. She just kind of shows up for the grand finale showcase and everything. But that's okay, because this is one of those Cinderella stories where Cinderella doesn't have a fairy godmother. It's really the culmination of the friendship she has and her just determining to do what she thinks she needs to do, and Prince Charming character Luke kind of trying to come to her rescue at certain points when he realizes who she is and different things. So it works out really well. I think this movie shows that the people really learned from the second movie. I did see at the opening credits it said based on characters from Lee Dunlap. So I need to look up to see if that's a book, and I don't know if, because it says it's based off the characters, how close it might be to the story she wrote, and how much that has an influence of the fact that this movie does break away so much from its predecessors. There's a lot of things I could go on and say, but I've already talked quite a bit, and I need to wrap up and get these uploaded and then do my video for the fourth movie. So yeah, so far it's not midnight here yet, so hope you guys have a good night, and I will throw up the numbers at the end of the screen.